Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. There I am. So, the idea for this past week was that you submitted your constructive or negative argument for the value debate. This week, we are going to respond to those. So, to clear anything up that might be a little confusing, everyone posted either an argument for or against their topic or their resolution. Then that could be done really without at all knowing what your opponent was going to say. It should have been really. Now you should watch your opponent's video and break it down and then construct a rebuttal. In other words, tell them why they're wrong and be fair to them. Go back and look at the fallacies PowerPoint that is loaded, and make sure that you're not attacking them. You're not giving sort of a weak version of their argument to make it easily to dismiss. Don't use things like false cause and appeal to misplaced authority, etc., etc. So review that. Now, what I want you to do for today, is to hang with me for just a minute while I walk you through how this might work for you. Here's what I did. So I am debating two of you because I forgot one person and we ended up with an odd number. But River, this is your response video, but this is how I did this. I'm not going to show you River's video. If you can watch it, it's public, so feel free to click on the link. But what I've done here, let me get back to where we can all see each other, is I went in and really tried to focus on the key elements of his argument. First, I started though with just stock issues. All right. And definitions, we didn't really need to define much. Maybe we could have defined best. What is the best league in the world, the soccer league in the world? But we kind of get to that later. And then the field that we're studying this in, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry there. But the two items on stock issues that really were important for us was application or proof of our value position. And to prove my position, I talked about major wins and notoriety. And to prove his position, River talked about competitive teams within a league. Similar hierarchy, what's most important. For River, it was competition within the league. For me, it was dominance either of a league or outside that league, sort of in that Champions League, which we got to. Then what I did was listen carefully to River's presentation. And what I've got here is the affirmative summary. So these are the 3 points that he made. And then I tried to come up with counterpoints as I was listening. And then what I did with that was plug in some version of the outline that we have used and came up with my response. All right, so you see it there. It's rather brief, but that's fine. So what I want to do is give you my response so you can walk through this with me and see how it might work for you. All right. So from the top with the tension getter, just below the box with all this in it. As the director of the Grand Valley Speech Lab, I want our social media footprint to be as useful and efficient as possible. And in finding ways to do this, I have looked at other organizations that are well known and have done by all means and by all regards a great job with their social media presence. And so I've looked up places like Apple to see how they do it. Different individuals, Barack Obama, even Donald Trump, actually. I wanted to see how frequently they tweet. Are their tweets and their Facebook posts a little different? But I tell you, when I looked for an ideal example for an organization, Apple was, it's Apple. It's a little advanced. Other places, other universities, not really what I want. I want to be better than them. I tell you, the best example I found was Real Madrid, the football team from Spain. Real Madrid has an excellent presence online in their social media, and they use different content for tweets, for Facebook posts, for Instagram. They post at least once a day in each form, and they set a great example on social media. And to me, it was the best example I could find. If I were looking for a football team that I could say the same about that performance being outstanding, I would probably also pick them for that reason. My name's Carl, and today I'm going to tell you about why the English Premier League is not the greatest soccer league in the world. Now, I'm going to respond to the idea that it is from my competitor, but I do not agree. My purpose, to be clear, is not to convince you, and to spell convinced right. It's not to convince you that one other specific league, the Spanish league, the Italian league, the French league, is better than the English Premier League. It's just that this league is no better than other leagues that are also quite popular and well renowned. So, what I want to do is talk to you about 3 points that my competition, my competitor brought up. I do want to say quickly, though, that we agree this is the greatest sport in the world and that it's not quite hot in America yet, but I do think it's coming. Of course, that's some people have thought that since the 80s, but we'll see. I really think it's right around the corner. Now, my opponent made some decent points, three specifically. His first was that there is great competition within the English Premier League. He talked about the big six teams, and those being Man United, Arsenal, Manchester City, Tottenham, Chelsea, and Liverpool. And then also noted that Leicester City has been, you know, playing around with the idea of getting into the big six. Now, when you have the big six, what he means there is that when you start off a season, chances are one of those big six teams is going to win the league. And there are 20 teams in the league, but having six that compete for it fairly regularly is great. However, it's not as great when you look a little deeper. On paper, sure, these are the big six, but let's be honest. When we look a little deeper, we see that Man United is now a flawed team that's just a shadow of its former self. It's really a shell. Arsenal, my favorite team, the only team in the English Premier League to ever have a completely undefeated season known as the Invincibles, are again, they're in a rebuilding stage. They're not competitive right now. They're just not going to win. And I hate to say that as that being my favorite team. Now, Manchester City, I feel like they are a great team that has a chance to win every year. As an Arsenal fan, I can't say anything good about Tottenham, but I will because of the purposes of this debate. They're a hot and cold team. I mean, they have great talent. They've got Harry Kane. They have Dele Alli, Song. I mean, they've got some really nice players, and they can be great. But if their big players aren't hitting on all cylinders, they're not going to be competitive. Then you've got Chelsea. Chelsea again, good team, but they're in a rebuilding state. Frank Lampard is their new manager, who is its second year as being in charge, and he had a decent season, but he started off really rough. And I don't think we can say that they are stable yet. And then of course Liverpool is the last in the big six, and I do agree those are that's a great team. Jurgen Klopp, I wish he would coach my team, Arsenal. Maybe we'd do better, but they've got great players and a great system. Now, think about what we just discussed. That means really Manchester City and Liverpool are the big two at this point. You know, really, this is new anyway. The big six, it used to be just the big four, which was Man United, washed up, Man City, still there, Chelsea, rebuilding, and then Liverpool, which we said was still there as well. Now, my opponent brought up Leicester City as an outsider that actually won the league a couple years ago, and he's right. But it dismantles that argument that these are the big six, or that there is such thing as a big six, when a team like Leicester could come from seemingly nowhere. They were promoted not long before they won the championship. So I don't think that the competition within the league is anything special. It's good. It is. It's very good. But it doesn't outrank other leagues. So let's move to the next point, where my competitor says that when you look at other leagues, the teams there's one or two dominant teams, and that's it. And let's walk through that. My competitor said that Germany has had the last same winner basically for the last 10 years, and he's correct on that. Bayern Munich is an amazing team. Same for France and Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, yes. Same for Italy with Juventus, yes, that's right. And Spain, really, you know, my opponent mentioned Real Madrid, but Barcelona in passing. But Atletico is also a really nice team as well. Now, we agree on one thing. Italian football is really bad right now. But maybe they'll rebound now that they have Ronaldo. I also see that I spelled Ronaldo's name wrong here. Sorry about that. So let's look at those leagues. And we've got, the idea that, let's start with Spain. Spain is dominated. The Spanish league's dominated by one or two teams. They are. They are. And that's okay because my argument is that best league is based on who has best teams. And if you look at my thought here, here's my thinking. Better players are make better teams, which makes better leagues. And I will say that, for years, Real Madrid had Ronaldo. Um, they have even a number of other players that are great in their own right, but they are overshadowed by the presence of Ronaldo. I'm thinking of Marcel. I'm thinking of Shakira's husband, who I'm drawing a blank on his name. But these are great players. And so, yes, they should be the best. Then Barcelona, for God's sake, has Lionel Messi. I mean, arguably the greatest player to ever put on soccer cleats. I mean, they should be a dominant team there. Same as for Germany. Yes, Bayern Munich dominates that league, but they probably should. I mean, Manuel Neuer, their goalkeeper, is the best goalkeeper in the world. The best goalkeeper in the world. Now, I know my friend on the other side may disagree because Manchester United has a very talented and skilled goalkeeper as well, but he's not the best in the world. Maybe he could have argued for that a couple seasons ago, but not now. So these teams should be dominant because they have the best players. PSG, by the way, same thing. For years, they had Alexander Griezmann, who is probably one of the best French players, or at least French forwards, to come out and play soccer. And right now they've got Neymar, Mbappe. If you watch soccer, you may know some of these names, but they're loaded with good players. And again, in my opinion, better players make better teams, which leads to a better league. The last point my friend made was about the Champions League and that three different English teams have won since the late 90s. And he's right. However, if you look at who has won the Champions League in all, it's dominated by teams from outside of England. Just because three teams from England sort of do well, here and there, that's good, but it's not enough to say that the English Premier League is the best league. Again, if we want to use the Champions League wins as a metric, that goes against the argument my friend made, and that has to go in my favor. Now, again, I want to leave you with the idea that better players create better teams, and that leads to better leagues. And I admit readily, there are some great players in the English Premier League, but there are better players in other leagues. If you think about, for example, Cristiano Ronaldo, if you go to someone who doesn't watch soccer at any part of the world and show them a picture of Ronaldo, chances are they'll know who that is. Now, who's the best player in the Premier League? Boy, it's tough to say in my opinion. I know we have a winner every year of MVP, but it's probably someone like Harry Kane or, well, let's just say, for example, that it's Harry Kane. If you showed someone a picture of him, they wouldn't have the same reaction everywhere in the world. It's because he's not as well known as someone like Ronaldo. Same thing with Messi. So to review, my point here is not that the English Premier League is the worst team or, below certain clubs. It's simply that it's not better than other clubs in the league or in the world. So to leave you with a thought, when I started looking at Real Madrid's social media, I was very, very impressed by the types of social media outreach they do, their attention to detail, their consistency with posts, and they made a great model. And they did that because they knew they had fans who used it regularly. And why did they have those fans? Because of their players. They attract people because better players make better teams, and that makes better leagues. Thank you. So that's sort of what we're looking for with the rebuttal here. And again, to be very clear, to be very clear, I do think the English Premier League is the greatest league in the world. It is. It's pretty hard to argue that it's not. But I just did and tried hard. So there are ways to get around some things. Again, you don't have to just say, well, my opponent said it was based on in league, within the league competition. So now I've got to try to say, well, it's not that competitive. I mean, I did a little bit of that with really highlighting Manchester City and Liverpool as the greatest teams, but I didn't really say other teams or other leagues had better competition inside them. Just that things weren't as shiny in the English Premier League as they were other places in comparison, right? So keep that in mind as you move forward. If you can boil your argument down to something like this, go ahead and do that. It won't work for everyone, but if you can come back and just keep hitting it and hitting it and hitting it, you'll see that it will be somewhat effective. Okay, so this is the video for River. Good job on the constructive, by the way. I will have feedback for you on constructives this week. You really don't need it in order to do the next assignment. What you need is what we just did. So I'll have that back to you this week. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask, and I will post them here if we have, multiple questions or questions that everyone may have. Otherwise, don't forget at the end of the week to submit your video of the rebuttal to the appropriate discussion board. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you soon.